Hey everybody, my name is Mr. X Stitch and I'm the Kingpin of Contemporary Embroidery, and it is my pleasure to be here to teach you how to cross stitch. Cross stitch isn't just for grannies anymore, and if you need proof of that, I'm a cross stitcher. So let's crack on, shall we? Following a cross stitch chart is much like painting by numbers. As you look at the chart, there will be different symbols that relate to the different colours of thread that you'll be using. And all you do is simply count the number of stitches and stitch them as they're shown on the pattern. So if you've got a row of 5 stitches of a particular symbol, then you just stitch 5 stitches of that colour. It's as simple as that, really. When you're starting a pattern, it's often wise to start with the darkest colours and work your way outwards. But also when you're starting a pattern, it's useful to start near the centre of the fabric so that you don't run out of space around the edges. It's super frustrating to stitch something and realise that you've run out of space. So taking the time to fold your fabric and make a couple of pinches in the middle like this, that means that you'll be able to put the fabric inside the hoop, knowing that that's the centre, start in the middle and work your way outwards. Cross stitch thread or floss comes in 6 strands, but usually you only need 2 strands to get a nice 2-ply effect. Now the technique I'm going to teach you is called the loop technique. So with the loop technique, all you need is a single strand of thread. To separate the threads, all you do is get the thread between your thumb and forefinger, find one of the 6 strands you want and pull that out slowly, holding the rest of them between your thumb and forefinger. You'll find that it comes out right nice. Then after that, all you need to do is fold the thread in half and put both ends through the needle. I often find the best thing to do is to lick the thread slightly, hold it really close to the tip of your fingers and then slowly drop the needle onto it. If you guide the needle onto it, the thread should be nice and stiff and it should hold up quite well. Once you've done that, just pull the thread through a little bit so you've got both ends through the needle and a loop at the bottom. In the pattern I'm following, I'm going to start near the centre where there's a bright green colour that you'll be able to see quite easily, and it's indicated by black triangles on the chart. Basically, a cross stitch is made of 2 stitches, a bottom stitch and a top stitch, and they're both diagonal stitches that go between 2 holes within a space on the even weave fabric. And when you're doing your cross stitch, all you're basically doing is stitching from one hole to the next, so you don't even have to give it a lot of thought. There's only really one rule with cross stitch, and that is always make sure that your bottom stitch goes in the same direction. I often think of them as forward slashes and back slashes, like on a keyboard, and basically you can either do forward slashes then backslashes, or backslashes then forward slashes, but as long as you're consistent you get a nice even finish. You've got your thread with the loop in the bottom, and to start all you simply do is come up from the centre of the fabric through one of the holes, do your first stitch, in my case I do a forward slash, and then once the needle is back through the back of the fabric again, all you do is put the needle through the loop and pull it gently. The loop ties around the thread, holds it in place, hey presto, your thread is anchored and it's not going to slip out. Once you've done your first forward slash, I recommend that you carry on following the row, just doing the forward slashes and getting used to pulling the thread through the holes. You want to get it so that the thread just sits like just so on the fabric, not too tight, not too loose, and you'll find that, you'll feel that out, it's not too bad at all. Then, once you get to the end of your row, you can turn around and come back the other way, doing your top stitches in the opposite direction. And that, dear friends, is basically the principle. I find it best to follow the pattern, and if I'm doing a particular area like the green on this stag beetle, I'll do it all in bottom stitch first, so that I can kind of get the counting out of the way. Then all I have to do once I've covered the area with my forward slashes is go back on myself, doing the back slashes, and it's nice and easy. Every time you make a stitch, you put a half twist in the thread, and what this can mean is over time your thread is going to get a little bit squirrely in the background. In order to avoid getting unsightly knots which lead to having to unpick your work, the best thing to do is to just let the needle drop every now and again so that it can unwind, then you can pick the needle up and carry on. You'll start to get a feel for when the tension in the thread is starting to happen, so you'll get used to that as well. But that's definitely a top tip. Then when you get to the end of the section of the stitching and you're ready to finish, all you need to do is use a technique that I call wheedle the needle. Basically, on the reverse of the thread, just wheedle the needle so that some of the thread goes underneath some of the stitches that you've already made. You don't want to go through the fabric, you just want to run it underneath some of the needles. It can be a bit fiddly, but once you've got the thread underneath 2 or 3 of the stitches, you can pull the thread through, cut it off and feel very pleased with yourself. Now, if the back of your work looks a bit untidy, I don't want you to worry about it. Sometimes people say that the back of your work has to be as tidy as the front, but it doesn't matter. The back tells the story of the front. It shows you where your stitches have been and if you've had any hiccups along the way. There's nothing wrong with it. And yeah, there you go. That's cross stitch in a nutshell. Just crack on everybody. Buy your materials from Lovecraft. Be sure to tag me in any social media post when you finish something so that I can be proud of you because you've just started doing the world's best craft.